It's been a while since I've done a Turn Talk installment, and I've been wanting to, but I've not really been able to come up with a good subject until now. And what brought this subject up is this bowl right here. I want to talk to you today about decisions. Good, bad, or indifferent, but the decision-making process when you're at the lathe. For example, the decision that I made about this bowl, I decided I wanted to keep this bowl as large as possible, which meant once I had it turned to shape, in a shape that I was happy with, I didn't want to reduce it in size anymore. I was going to have a bowl that was 12 inches wide. I was bound and determined that was going to happen. It didn't. It's 11 3/4. I had to take 1/4 of an inch off in order to get any kind of a mold around it at all. That was a bad decision. It was a bad decision on my part. It turned out to cost me a lot of time and a lot of unnecessary resin. What do you mean, Billy? What I mean is I was bound and determined to keep it 12 inches. My focus should have been on how do I need to size this so that I can fit it into a mold that's actually going to do what I want it to do. And that would have been this mold right here. This is the largest bowl that I could find, and its inside diameter is 11 inches. That's an inch smaller than I wanted. Okay, enter bad decision number one. It's kind of a damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead kind of a thing. Cut off your nose to spite your face. I didn't want to cut this down so that it would fit in here. That would have been the smart thing to do. This is the biggest bowl I could find, and it's short of spending $20 on one, some off of Amazon, and I wasn't about to do that for something that I'm probably going to have to tear up. So I should have made this bowl, bad decision number one, I should have turned it down to fit in here. It would have been absolutely perfect because it's the right depth and everything. I didn't have to make the bowl shorter. I just had to make it 1 inch more narrow than I did. So we make decisions as wood turners, and sometimes we suffer for them. This is one of the cases in point. In retrospect, I wish I might, but I really kind of wish that I had just turned it down another inch and used that bowl as the mold, and it would have been over so much quicker. So very often we pay for the decisions that we make. It's not always a bad thing. It wasn't really a bad thing in this case. It was a bit of a negative. I mean, the bowl turned out great. It took multiple pourings and multiple fiddlings and whatnot to make it happen. But that was my fault. That was my fault because of the decision I made. Now, I would still have to have gone through the iterations on the inside and wasted a little more resin there than I wanted to, just because of the nature of that bowl and me deciding to fill it. But that would have happened. That's all the exterior work that went into it that wouldn't have happened had I just cut an inch off, half inch on each side, and gone that direction. That was my choice, my decision. Bad one on my part, I think, or a less than positive one, to say the least. But that's one example of the kinds of decisions that we need to make as wood turners. Another decision is, do we stick with a bowl that's as holy and got as many voids in it, wormy if you will, as this one was? A lot of turners won't. They won't mess with stuff like that at all. I actually like the character that the bug holes give some pieces. It's a shame though, because very often, I mean, look at the spalting in this thing. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And the character of this wood, this hackberry is beautiful in and of its own right. So the bug holes can be a detraction from that, and that's too bad. Another decision that we have to make as wood turners is, okay, what am I going to do with something like this? This is a piece of Arizona ash. It is 9 inches across 10 3/4 inches long, but it's only, with the bark, it's only 2 7/8 inches deep on this side, 3 on this side. So the decision we have to make on something like this is, do I want to turn this natural edge? If I do, it's going to be very, very shallow. Probably not a good decision. So I will probably end up making about an 8-inch platter out of this. It's about the right thickness for a platter, and it's just not quite deep enough for a bowl. I've got plenty of shallow bowls. I haven't made very many platters because I don't like wasting that much wood. In this case, there's not a lot of waste here. So I'm going to make a platter out of this, and that'll be in a video coming up pretty soon. I'll make a platter out of this, and I'm probably going to do some decorative stuff to the outside of it, because I've been wanting to do another one of those too. Okay, another decision. This is a piece of spalted maple. You see how this is pretty thin over here and pretty thick on this side. Not a real good candidate for a natural edge. Even though the bark has come off, you can still do natural edge bowls without bark, but it would not, because of that dimension, unless you canted it on the lathe to make these similar and wasted that material away, it would not be a good candidate for a natural edge. So it will probably end up being turned conventionally like this. Another decision we have to make as wood turners along this same line here is there's some checking right here, because the pith was very close to here, but there's some checking, and we have to ask, and there is on this side as well. So when we look at a blank and it's got cracks or checks in it, we have to decide, is it worth it? Do I want to, are the cracks going to bother me? I can fill them, or it depends on what kind of crack it is. If it's ring shake or wind shake, no. Ring shake or wind shake is where you'll look at a piece, this is the end grain, and you'll look at a piece and you'll see cracks that follow the growth rings. Ring shake or wind shake is, this is end grain here, and the growth rings go this way. And ring shake or wind shake is when you look at a piece like this and you see that there's cracks that follow the growth rings. That's almost always an indication of wind or ring shake, and that's because the tree has been under a lot of wind stress, and it's actually separated inside the growth ring, and it usually goes all the way through. And if you try to turn a piece like that, you're begging for trouble. I don't think in those situations, I don't think it's even worth trying to fill that void with resin and hope the epoxy holds those two pieces together. This is a piece of Osage orange, and that is an example of ring or wind shake. Very dangerous. Some flaws and checks or voids or whatever are worth the risk, but some are most definitely not. You don't want to risk it at all. Another decision is when it comes to something like this big hunk of ash juniper. This thing is huge, and it's still really heavy. It's dry, but it's heavy. It's a foot wide one direction, 15 inches the other. It's cut crossways. It's a cookie, and it's 7 3/4 inches deep. It looks like it's got a hole that runs pretty much through the pith, so that would have to be addressed. I'm not worried about the surface checks. I can deal with that. There's no ring shake in it. So what do you do with something like this? There's a couple of things you can do. Because of the nature of ash juniper, it has a lot of bark inclusions typically. There's one right here that you can see, and there's one here. On this side, you've got this one here, and a smaller one over here. So it's not consistent all the way down. You see it there. So how do you turn something like this? There's a number of things you could do. You could cut it in half and make about a 7-inch bowl out of each piece this way, and get rid of a lot of this out here. I may not do that. I don't know. Like I said, there's decisions that you have to make. I could choose to leave it like this and just make an end grain bowl out of it and just leave the voids be voids. The reason this one is still sitting here on the floor is because I haven't decided how I want to address this yet. Those are decisions we have to make as woodturners. I hope this has been helpful in some way and not just me sitting here rambling on, flapping my gums. I do these things hopefully so that people get something out of it and learn from my mistakes, such as the mistake I made on this piece. Sometimes even I don't learn. Seldom will I make the same mistake twice, but you never know, knowing me. As always, comments are welcome, either direction, positive or negative. If you don't like it, tell me why. If you got something out of it, you can tell me that too. I really appreciate it. Until next time, be safe. That's the most important decision we have to make as woodturners, is how can I do this and stay safe?